Hey, do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties, and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this. Okay, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. This is where we hear stories from people in bands, musicians, artists, about all the different jobs, including the one of making the record, doing the thing that we know them for. Everyone does it differently. Here's where we get to hear about it. For today's episode, I spoke with Patrick Kindlon of Drug Church, who have over the years become a staple if you're a punk rock or hardcore fan. They're heavy, they're groovy. You can hear the Drug Church sound from miles away. Patrick is a recognisable voice, recognisable face. It was good to talk to him and learn about stuff about the band that I'd never known before. They've got a new album out this Friday called Prude. If you're a Drug Church fan, then there's more storytelling on this. There's more character profiles, great heavy music to jam out to ride your bike to. I've been heavy on that, riding bicycles and listening to music. I think that's my favorite thing. Drug Church is great riding your bicycle music. Just don't drive too fast. It's 101 Part-Time Jobs. Cheers for listening. If you enjoy this, make sure you click subscribe. We put out 2 episodes every week with bands who we think are great. It'd be ace to have you along. Cheers for being here. If you're able to leave 5 stars, that'd be mega. After the jump, it's Patrick Kindlon of Drug Church. Cheers. 101 Part-Time Jobs. Do you write lyrics quite soon to recording?
Oh, I write them in the studio as we're recording. Basically the guys record the song. I put it on headphones, listen 5 to 10 times, and then write the lyrics there.
No way.
Yeah,
So
I don't.
Not in the rehearsal space then.
No. It's rare that I hear songs before they're recorded.
Is that because of the distance between you and the members?
No, it's just that I have nothing to add musically.
Are you not tempted to go along to the lockup, to the rehearsal space, and
in no way, no. There's not a drop of me that has that instinct. Because what am I going to tell? Like, these are talented musicians. What am I going to tell them? Hey, you need more do-do-do-do-dos in this? You need more bah, bah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even have the language to properly express what I would like them to do. My attitude on the thing is that as long as it is good, I make no judgment. So if they provided me a ska song, I would just sing on a ska song, provided it was a good ska song.
Yeah, for real. There's great ska punk out there.
Of course.
There's a lot of talk. I mean, I'll give you a bit of background. We jumped into it just then, but 101 Part-Time Jobs, it is about people playing in bands and working loads of side hustles. Who's getting paid in music, whether you're the difference. I'm going through a little thing personally where in the last few years, whereas I probably would have been a bit of a snob, I would have been a snob at high school about, oh, look at that band, they just want to sound like the Strokes. Now I don't think there's a whole much difference between people playing in bands and letting their interests come out, you know. And so whereas when I grew up, I thought, oh, like playing punk rock music, you know, you look to Black Flag and that touring thing, you're like, you know, we live off scraps and that's the way we do it. I realized that every band is practically doing that because no one's really getting paid for it. So these are kind of all my kind of ruminations around like working jobs to do the thing that you like sometimes.
Sure. I think the example that I'm capable of getting in my feelings about Michael Gira of the band Swans and Angels of Light. For years and years, because he also ran his own label, etc., he was working construction. And that's one of the most brilliant musicians working in, you know, the type of music that I enjoy, like, you know, guitar-based music. He's among the really like the smartest cookies, really. And he was doing construction. So just an absolute genius, capable of really just pulling the emotion out of listeners. And, you know, he was doing demo and construction for years and years. And it's interesting to think about because I run into, you know, 22-year-olds who music is what they enjoy most, and they presume that that's all they're ever going to have to do. But that's obviously not really the case. And also, I think it's really unhealthy, obviously, because if you get it in your head that you're not a real musician unless that's the only thing you do, you're not going to be a terribly well-adjusted person or easy to talk to. And then also you're setting yourself up for a greater embarrassment, which is having to rely on other people. Because a friend of mine is a booking agent for big acts, and sometimes acts that people think are going to be big. And some of those think they're going to be big bands they do really wild things. Like they will, I won't say the name, but there's a band that told the band leader, so to speak, told the rest of the band, hey, you can't work because it's a bad look. So if somebody sees you, we're trying to be a real band, and if somebody sees you, you know, working a kiosk at the mall, it takes away from our mystique. Mm-hmm. And now that's an extreme case, obviously, but that exists. There is this type of it's mostly young people, of course, but it's hey, we're not the real thing unless this is the only thing. Yeah. And I come from I live in the United States, and most people have 2 jobs. I don't see anything about that taken away from the music that I make. If I worked 10 jobs, I wouldn't see myself as, you know, not a person playing music all of a sudden. Yeah. You know, it is a matter of priorities, however, because if you are a steel worker who plays in a bar band, that is different than being a touring band that has to do, you know, work when they get home. There is a difference in the order of priorities, but you're still obviously playing music. You know, so it's I think it's unhealthy to fixate on this idea that you should only ever do one thing. Hold on one second. Doing a podcast for the benefit of our band. Could you take that elsewhere, please? Hello.
I appreciate that. I mean, hey, on Prude, you talk about work, like work comes up a lot. Like whether it's in the storyline, like the word work is in a bunch of songs. And it makes me, you know, think this 101 part-time jobs, it's about working, it's about making money and to do things, and like the actual work of being a writer, you know, or being a guitarist or being a lyricist. Does that come from an earlier place in your life? Were you brought up in a world where it's like, okay, you're 15, you go to work now?
No, honestly. I mean, I do not feel like I have any sort of great work ethic at all. And I wish I did. You know, people see me do a lot of different things, so they assume that I'm always grinding in some way. But I just have a lot of different interests. It's not. I mean, if I had the work ethic that people believe I have, I would be much more successful. You know what I mean? But I don't really feel that way. However, and this is, I don't know what to attach this to. It's, whatever, maybe, my it's, half my family is from Ireland. So like maybe that's an ethic there, but it's associated sometimes with Catholicism as well, which is just that not everything is supposed to be fun. Not everything is a joy. You know what I mean? It's there are things that we do in life that are supposed to be uncomfortable or miserable.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't even chalk that up to Catholicism. Plenty of Protestants also see the world that way, but it might be an American immigrant thing of a certain generation that diffuses down a couple, I couldn't say, but a thing that I often tell people if they're trying to do music, etc., is find bandmates from working class backgrounds, not because I have any judgment or give a shit about the wealth that they were born into or not. That's a random circumstance that you have no control over. But the reason that you would want people of that background is because at a certain juncture, your touring life looks very similar to a truck driver's. And if you were never, if truck driving was something you couldn't conceive of, I would never do, then you're not going to do very well at this thing that requires you to be on the road for 140 days a year. There are massive parts of being in a band that are completely unsexy, completely, granular problem solving things, or there is no solving the problem. It's just, you have to power through whatever this annoying thing is. It's work, is so to speak. People that work in offices will relate to this. People who work manual labor are going to relate to this. There's certain aspects of your day that are just inescapable at things that are less rewarding than the rewarding thing. Let's say that you actually have a job that you somewhat like. You work in construction, but it's a specialized enough construction that you actually really feel like you get, okay. And I'll give you one. I have a friend who's a welder, right? And he's in a specialized form of welding where it's got whatever the special gas is that you have to fill certain, whatever it is, so that you get an inert gas within the thing that you are actually welding, et cetera, because it can't be, you can't have any oxygenized parts in there, or it gets, it could poison food. Okay. Sorry. That was a long way to a thing, but, okay. So that guy loves that gig. He loves that gig because it might take him, 4 days to weld the thing that he's supposed to weld, because it's a real process, but it's done. And when he looks at it, if his work is up to his own standard and the client is happy, he is a happy person. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then he goes home. But even that man who enjoys that work understands that, okay, the part where I have to climb up on a tank at a food processing plant or a brewery, and I'm scared of heights. I have to be up at this certain height for 4 hours of this, blah, blah, blah. It's not a joy. And I think this notion that music has to be completely different, it has to be pure expression. It certainly can be, but that's the type of thing that if you're gifted a guitar and you didn't work to pay for it, and then you can sit at home just sort of learning parts or writing songs, that can be a pure expressive exercise where there is no drawbacks or downsides. Listen, honestly, you run into a lot of people. I always reference this kid, he's probably 40 something now, but I met him years ago and he had just quit music. This was when I was young. And he had just quit music because he thought it was just a big jerk off that, you have to kiss everybody's ass to be become popular and blah, blah, blah. And he was so cynical about the thing. And I was so young and still so excited for music. It was crazy to hear. And in some respects, he is right. And then in other respects, you can ignore big parts of that. I'm exceptionally good at getting along with people that I don't necessarily like. I would be, as much as I don't want those jobs, I would be good in an office where everybody was an asshole, because I am completely unfazed by someone trying to get my goat in a workplace. I don't give a fuck. I'm there to work. That's
a good skill to have.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just unbothered by, I don't think I'm going to be at any job forever. So say whatever the hell you want to say. We're just getting through the day here. But, and that's helpful on tour, obviously, because you do run into difficult personalities at times, but everything can whittle you down, is what I'm saying, is that if you allow it to, and you take it personally, and you don't have a lot of self-belief. I guess that's another thing. If you think your music is good and you can rest on your music, sometimes you have to let go of the things that are out of your control, because once you start to micromanage them, there are people who are successful at that. There's bands that you see on stadium shows that they micromanage every aspect of their career. They are 100%. They're not even really comfortable with delegating things. They're the Stalin of their little world, and they can become successful. But more often than not, you will ruin the experience for yourself and not become successful. And this is easier for me because I'm not that talented. If I was super talented and I was, I thought that I deserved something because I was really talented, most of the time I'm on a big stage, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what kind of scam did I pull to get here? Because there's no reason. I don't have the ability that these people have. There's guys. It's funny. There's a band out there, I won't say who they are, but some people probably guess. They've been around a long time, and the singer can't sing anymore at all, right? And people say when they go to their shows, it's just so discouraging because this man can't hit any of the notes that he hit in his youth, and it's just an ugly display, right? And I personally don't get it at all, because if that was me, I would acknowledge it at every show, have fun with it. Everybody, look, I'm that broke down dog that's been hit by a car 4 times in your neighborhood, walks around with a limp, but refuses to go back inside regardless. I know my voice is dog shit. It's dog shit. Why dance around it? Let's have a good time tonight. Your voice is going to be better than mine. Why don't you guys sing the songs and have a good time? And for me, and I'm not, again, this is when you get into mythos making and brand building. Whenever I say something, please, to your listeners, I don't mean to sound profound at all. Okay. Like there's no profundity here. It's just, I've done this for a while, so I have thoughts, but the idea is, okay, if you do something to the best of your ability and you acknowledge that there are things that are out of your control, then you will be happy. I am a very happy, I don't know if I would probably decline to call myself a musician, but I'm a happy band guy because I feel like I'm still getting better at the thing that I'm doing and having fun with it. The stuff that falls outside of my control, or I'm allowing to fall outside of my control in return for my happiness, such as, trying to be the biggest band. And that might be a background thing too, right? Because I grew up only really wanting to play hardcore music, and there's no future in hardcore music. There's a couple acts that have good careers by doing a thing really well and finding the fans that really love them. But it's, when I was younger, that was still pretty abstract.
But you're a big Sick of It All fan, right?
Yeah, but you have to understand. Sick of It All, I got into Sick of It All in 1996. They were seen as the proest of the pro bands at that time, but that was not seen as a lifetime career. It was still sort of hey, this, we assume this is going to end. You know what I mean? Like, because who sticks around that long? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very few hardcore bands. I mean, Sick of It All, Terror, Comeback Kid. There's bands that have now these Agnostic Front, of course. But you've got these bands that have been around a long time, maybe taking short breaks, but have never really interrupted the stream, and those bands still able to make a living. Really impressive, because it's not, I don't want to say that this isn't, that hardcore is a genre that precludes a career, because obviously that's not true. These bands have proven that to be false, but it's 5 times as much work. You know what I mean? Like, and not everybody's willing to do that for what ultimately amounts to, a working man's salary, right?
Yeah.
Most people would not like to be away from their families for 100 days a year for the same amount of money that they could get managing a Sabaros. I don't know if Sabaros is a thing in England. Managing a Greg's. You know what I mean? It's
that's a good job.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll take that job.
Here's my thing: is it's only sexy if you love doing it, right? And the second you don't love doing it, that's the least sexy job you could have, because particularly by the time that you are able to make a career or call it a career, by the time in your life you are able to call something a career, you are probably at those adult junctures where you have a family and sort of the adoration of strangers in whatever limited capacity. Let's say you're playing 500 cap to 1,000 cap rooms. Okay. Let's say you're playing 1,000 cap rooms, because that's a career. You could bring home good money playing 1,000 cap rooms and feed your family. You're away a lot, but you could definitely see it like driving a truck, where it's okay. We got a successful little thing going. Let's keep it going. So let's say you're 1,000 cap rooms and you still have fans and people who love you. Okay. But by the time that's a career, by the time you're in your 30s, your 40s, or later, you probably don't care about the approval of strangers in the same way that you did when you were in your 20s. So if you have a family, to your listeners who don't have a family, and I'm sure there's many, but to the listeners who do, I think both sides are going to maybe relate to this in whatever way. When you have a family, you really, if you love them, and you really could not care about strangers' approval, right? You have all the approval that you seek, God willing you get it from the people who love you truly, who know you best, right? They don't just know you for what you put out in the world, they know you for what you don't put out in the world, right? So once you have their approval or their love, it's, I don't want to slam any of the big artists, because it always seems pathetic when a guy that's like filling 500 caps is like attacking guys who fill stadiums. But some of those people strike me as really unhappy people, because they still need it, and they don't need to keep making music. They need to keep being adored. And I think that's an unhealthy thing. There's obviously there's gradients of this, of course, because a lot of times reunion bands get a bad rap, and they're seen as only chasing the money, right? It's an ugly thing. This is not supposed to be about the money, but it seems like they're just here. People got that all messed up. A lot of times it's just that those individuals miss a time in their life where strangers told them, hey, what you do is good. Hey, I really love what you do. And maybe they're not, maybe their job that they have in their current life is not doing that. Maybe their family is not doing that for whatever reason. And they want to go back to that time where, hey, you are in fact special. What you do is remarkable, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And this is what, I don't want to get into anybody's personal business, but this is why some of these guys get fucked up and, leave their wives for 26-year-old women who just like love their bands. You know what I mean? It's because it reminds them of approval. It reminds them of being validated. And, to be honest, I won't even judge that. That's just somebody's life journey and whatever. Hope your families all figure it out. But the point is that at some point it becomes diminishing returns on doing a thing for most of us. It becomes diminishing returns career wise on the approval part, right? Like if you need obviously fans, because otherwise you can't go out on tour and do the thing that you do. But I think that compliments and insults after a certain time in your career, both wash right over you because you are probably at that point either burnt out and just trying to make a living for your family at this thing that you're good at, or you are trying to be the best at what you do for yourself. And other people ultimately have very little to do with those two things, That's all to say that it's just driving a truck.
You just become a stepdad fairly recently.
I have, yeah.
Has that changed your life?
Yeah, certainly. It's funny. I went out to eat with a friend the other day he was at my wedding, but he confessed that he was kind of surprised that I got married because I had never been big on the institution in my entire life. Not lifetime commitment. Lifetime commitment makes sense enough to me, but just the whole, the ritual of the thing and the traditionalism of the thing.
Never made tax reasons as well.
Yeah, it never made a ton of sense to me, but my wife is quite traditional in some regards, and we got married at a venue in Vegas. It wasn't like we rented a cathedral, so not terribly traditional, but the institution became important. It was important enough to her that it became important to me. Right now, we could have lived the rest of our lives as partners or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever it was. But ultimately, I'm glad that we did it the way that we did it, because it is there weirdly is a power in the language, right? Yeah. Like a husband, wife, there is a power in the language that I did not assume before. It's kind of it's interesting. It's kind of powerful within your relationship, because if you take promises seriously, then there is more assumption that you are going to problem solve and work through whatever difficulties you have approaching that maybe you would have done as boyfriend, girlfriend, maybe, absolutely. But you certainly will now that you have looked somebody in the eye and said, okay, I am committed to this project that we're engaging in fully. You can rely on me now, So I think that there is a power in the language that I totally did not anticipate. And
big good surprise.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise. I mean, look, at the risk of getting emotional, when you hear guys give award speeches and they thank their wives and everything, and it's, they get in their feelings because they think about what they're capable of without their wife and what they're capable of with their wife. And there's just a massive divide, right? That's how I feel. Like, I just feel like, in addition to loving my wife with all my heart, I also just feel as though she brings out the better parts of my nature. So, obviously, you ask somebody about their wife, they're going to tell you they love their wife, but I love my wife, but I'm also grateful for my wife. Yeah. And as far as being a stepfather, that's something I didn't necessarily anticipate either. But I will tell you, I think that that's an incredibly rewarding opportunity. For if you're like me, and I don't know who your average listener is, but let's say that it's a guy, let's say it's a 30-year-old man. I am not, everybody, I'm older than that, but let's say it's a 30-year-old man who doesn't have his life together fully, has a job, maybe even likes his job, but maybe he's interested in playing music. Maybe he does play music and would like to do it at a bigger level. And the idea of responsibilities, such as the ones that family brings on, or like a heavy duty commitment to career brings on, are terrifying because there's this other thing that's calling him. He wants to do this, whatever his art is, right? And okay, I'm not trying to sell you on the idea that kids are easy. Like, I'm not trying to sell you that if you have a child, you can go on tour immediately, blah, blah, blah. However, these things that we do in life, particularly in the arts, where so much of how it's received is based on sort of the tenor of the larger moment and how much you can fall out of that at any given time. You are much better served seeking the love of your family than you are seeking the love of strangers. And, you know, again, my situation's a little, not unique, but it's a little different in that my wife occasionally, she and I will talk about having another child occasionally, but for the most part, we are very happy with this situation, which is she has a beautiful child, and that child has accepted me, and I get to walk into a situation where I never had to clean a diaper, but I have a beautiful family. It is, you know, I'm very satisfied by my situation at present. And
Good to hear.
yeah, so, and when you ask if it's changed me in any regard, this has come up in the, you know, in the analysis of my lyrics, when people, you know, I'll do interviews and people will talk about the lyrics of the new record versus old music, and you know, I don't know if I would have enough self-awareness to be able to say with any confidence, right? Because I'm the one in the thing, so it's hard to say. I would be speculating, you know, and if somebody posited something to me, you know, maybe I'd agree or not based on, you know, just the moment, you know, but I imagine that stepfatherhood and marriage has probably had some impact on the lyrics, you know, and maybe it's kicked me into the storytelling space a little bit more, you know.
Big time. There's a lot of storytelling. I love the ones especially about, and I'm tempted to ask you if they're based on truth or not, but someone holding themselves hostage to get their you know, drug money. I love that. I love the one about the business guy that you would do drugs and now he works in the city. You know, that storytelling is rad to hear in heavy music.
Thank you. What I realized last night when we played one of the songs, two of the new songs live, is everything's got to be a story moving forward, because I can't remember lyrics if they're not, you know, because a story makes sense to you. Like your brain can process it. It's not like because when you're on stage, your brain is doing a couple interesting things, right? If you know a song super well, you can process two ideas at one time. You know, I've met guitarists who could have full conversations while they played their songs, right? Just really, you know, in addition to being talented, they just knew their parts, you know. But for someone like me who is, you know, a little absent-minded and not terribly talented, I struggle to remember lyrics every night, you know, and it's only when I'm really in the zone that I get everything right. Yeah. And even then, to be honest, in my entire time of music, I don't know if I've done a set where I remembered every word. I would be shocked. Hold on, I apologize to you. I got to stand up for a minute while I have this conversation. But the stories make it much easier because your brain is processing them in I guess a linear fashion. One thing leads to another, and your brain can assume the next thing. It makes you know. I find it very helpful. But regarding the truthfulness of those songs, I don't want to get. I feel like the one guy might be a little litigious if I ever say who it is, but yeah, those are based on real, on real things.
We haven't talked about your comic book creations, and maybe we could talk about that another time. I don't know how much you have to say on it, other than that you enjoy doing it and you spend time doing it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, it's what I'm actually good at. You know, it's music. I have real limitations. I don't, you know, if I think about it too much, I get a little sad. I'm not good at a thing that I've devoted 20 years to. That's fucking crazy. You know what I mean? Like, just not good at it. Like, you know, imagine doing anything for that long and still having to look in the mirror and go, I'm like 15% better than I was when I started, and I started at 0. Fuck, you know? But comic books, you know, the writing of comic books, writing in general, I'm pretty good. Writing in comics, I would say I'm an above average talent. So it's a thing that it's rewarding for many of the same reasons that music is. And then also I get to actually say, okay, well, you know what? That's something that almost any literate person could probably enjoy, you know what I mean? Versus what I do in music, which is rather niche and you know, you really have to, most people have to have a background. I mean, that's the real failing of what I do, right? And like how I probably hold my band back from a lot of opportunities is because you need to enjoy Drug Church almost necessitates a background in the type of music that influenced me. Because if you have no sort of frame of reference for what I'm doing, it just sounds like I'm a shitty singer, which is technically true, of course, but also like there is, in whatever small respect, some type of cultural thing being manifest. Now, it is a fact. I'm not running from this. It is a fact. I'm bad at singing, but there is also, I'm trying to do like live. I'm trying to do Negative Approach. You know what I mean? so
you know, like, here's a good example. Stephen Malkmus, right? I mean, you can't even recreate his voice because it's so different. And to a lot of people, it's a bad voice, but that's the sound of Pavement. That's the sound of Gold Sounds, which is on so many people's like wedding playlists, you know, like best of ever playlists. I think that you can't, I feel like Stephen Malkmus is like the line after which it's like, it doesn't even matter. It's almost like irrelevant to talk about. You sound like how you sound like, and that's it.
Well, I mean, yes, of course it isn't either, you're either in or out sort of thing. But I mean, to a degree, all music is like that. I could look at somebody like Adele and say, what a talent. And and it still is really alienating to my ear, you know. So every artist to a degree is you're in it or you're out. But when somebody is also low talent in the traditional sense, it opens them up to other criticisms or different type of scrutiny, you know. Certainly if you played, this sticks out to me quite a bit. I worked at a vegan restaurant in the early 2000s, and we were playing Fugazi on the PA on the speakers of the place, and somebody that was dining there said, "What is this?" And you know, my coworker says Fugazi, and he says, "Is it a Friends band?" And the reason he said that is because it sounds unprofessional, and that person is right. Like, let's say that person, we don't even need to assume the worst about that person. We don't need to assume that they only listen to pop music or they only listen to, if they listen to R&B, Fugazi sounds unprofessional. If they listen to stadium rock of the 70s, Fugazi sounds unprofessional. So we don't even need to say, oh, like, well, you know, who's this guy listening to? You know, Britney Spears. You know, we don't need to do that because by any standard, Fugazi sounds unprofessional.
Or like Slint.
Yeah, sure.
But then that's the beauty of it. That's the magic.
Yes. The only matter of promotion I'll say is I do Patrick Kindlon. That's just everybody. That's my name at .substack.com. If you're interested in my comic book work, that's where I talk about it. I talk about things in comic books, you know, news items going on in the world. You get a lot of opinions. So if you're not, you know, if you're burnt out on opinion, don't subscribe. You're just going to be bummed out. But if you're interested in that part of my life, I got a lot of projects coming out in 2025. I did a thing that I really never do. I took pretty much all of 2024 and just planned. I put together everything that I wanted to do. It looks like next year I'll have 4 books out. But it was painful to, it's painful to not smear myself across the world because that's all I've done for so long, right? My other band, Self Defense Family, we used to put out multiple records a year for, over a decade. It'd be multiple records per year. If we didn't put out 3 records a year, it was a massive failure. And we haven't put out a proper record in a long time now. Pre-pandemic, I think, at like a proper record. And we're recording that now. That's painful to not, I'm a believer that nothing, the things I do aren't supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to be expressive. So to me, it's always, hey, why isn't more out in the world? And people can sift through it,
Yeah.
If they want, or they can decline to. But the
Guided by Voices style.
Right. I mean, listen, I've listened. I guess they've actually put out new music, but maybe 4 years ago, I listened to every Guided by Voices song in existence, including I think they call it suitcase tapes or whatever, like the literal throwaway tapes that they, were just errant ideas. I listened to every single thing. I still have the playlist somewhere. It's like, 48 hours worth of music or something. And they have a remarkable hit rate because of how good a band they are. Remarkable. But that's still like 60%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's 40% chaff. You know what I mean?
I mean, a lot of it sounds bad as well. I mean, I know it sounds like Tascam recorders, and like that's the point, right? But
right.
I find some of it pretty hard to listen to because it's like, the way a tape comes in and out, in and out, in and out. It's like, I can't do this. But I still love it, and I love the idea of it.
See, that's interesting because Guided by Voices, I think actually, and this is an unpopular opinion, I think the more melody you have, the shittier your recording can be. Whereas, punk and hardcore often says the opposite, that, there's a demo, there's like a sort of, I don't know, sorry for using this phrase, je ne sais quoi to demo recordings. And that everybody is supposed to understand that this is how it's supposed to be. But I think a bad hardcore demo is painful. Whereas if you have a 4-track and a capable singer and with a capable guitar player, you can get through most, because I really enjoy Guided by Voices, but also the Bill Callahan stuff. You get these guys that don't need anything. I mean, and I mean that they don't need anything to make a good record. They need a guitar to make a great record. I mean, maybe some of them were doing tape loops, some of them had drums, some of them didn't even, I mean, but I really feel that that's like, that's a different thing than what I do. I have the unpopular viewpoint that heavy music specifically needs to spend money on their recordings. It's not popular, but it is because I come from this background where it's like no, you're supposed to, what about these great crust bands? Those crust bands would be better if they sounded better. Period. Period. And I can't say that for there's Smog records that I think are fantastic, sounding like shit. They're truly fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's you can't say that necessarily for punk and hardcore. I think spend a little bit. It's just, I mean, there's not a ton going on. Oh, Will Oldham is another, the Bonnie Prince Billy era was another guy who needed nothing. You could record that. You could record that guy on a Tascam and you'd go, oh, okay, songs are there. You know what I mean? Like nothing's getting lost. But the more elements you add to something, and I guess this is why I feel heavy music sucks at bad recording, is because there's too much in competition for your ear. So it's right. It's not pleasant. It's like it's just so much of what you could appreciate about the thing is stamped into a mush. Anyway, everybody, that was my spiel on why you should spend $1,000 at least to fucking record something.
101 part-time jobs, side hustles. You mentioned working at the restaurant earlier. I feel like most people have a kind of one specific tragic day, hopefully not actual true tragedy. Nobody died, hopefully. But like those days, like a day that you think back to and think, fuck, I'm so glad I got to the end of that day.
Yeah, there's a couple of those that haunt me. There's one where I was supposed to deliver gear to a fake band. And this is weird, but basically it was a fake band that was on a morning show. It wasn't a real band. It was like a band meant to promote something else. And I was supposed to be their watcher. And I was like their little handler. And I was tasked with getting them the rental gear. And I left so early that I did not think there was any reason to take the toll road. I was like, oh, I'm leaving hours ahead. And then there was a backup. Traffic was backed up. And when I showed up, I was sweating. They were sweating and mad as piss. And, you know, they weren't a real band. So, you know, there's no, you know, they're setting up for this live performance that they're not, I don't want to say qualified. They're, you know, they can play music, but they're not, you can set, okay, let me put it like this. If you put me in that situation, it's all good. We're going to plug into the thing and we're going to play the music. It'll be fine. If you've never toured and somebody says, hey, you're going to be in front of the most human beings you've ever been in front of. You thought you were going to have an hour and a half to set up. You've got 20 minutes. You got 15 minutes. You got 10 minutes. And watching them sweat and it was a hateful sweat where they hate my ass. You know what I mean? Like that was
hateful sweat playing down the bird's nest tonight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That was a stressful one because I don't like to let people down. You know, some people are really comfortable with it. Some people are like, no, fuck them. You know what I mean? But that's not me. If I say I'm going to do something, I like to do it to the best of my ability. So that one stands out. I've had days where for a short time I was removing tile at a mega church. I'm removing flooring at a mega church. And so it was a beautiful it wasn't a mega church at the time. It was a beautiful old theater in New York City. And it had been purchased by a church. In the United States, there's the evangelical movement in the United States has like a kind of unrepentantly commercial aspect to it. And one part of it. Sorry, everybody. This was my field of study in college, so I could talk about the American evangelical movement for a long time. But you have parts of it that are, you know, the idea is to get as many human beings in a room as possible, and it is not necessarily, you know, the small church house where everybody knows each other. The community is supposed to be massive. It's, you know, it's like a celebration of something else, whatever it is. But they had purchased this beautiful old theater, and I have no idea how I got the gig. You know, I was working with longtime flooring guys who walk at a 45-degree angle because you spend all your time bent over in that position. But I was just terrible at it. Oh, I was terrible janitor too. Truly terrible janitor. Yeah, you know that when a longtime janitor turns to you and just says, you know, you're not very good at this, and you go, you know what? I thought this was easy. I thought being a janitor was easy. I was really fucking wrong. You know, and that's the thing that I hold with me for my whole life is, I just assume things are harder than they appear, because when I was a janitor, I was actually bad at being a janitor. And, you know, everybody hearing this is like, well, you can't mop? Listen, people that are actually good at cleaning, that's a thing. You know what I mean? That's a thing. It requires a certain type of mind. It requires a certain type of, you know, attention to detail that I simply do not have. And Yeah, so I was a janitor for a short time at a mental institution, and just to have somebody turn to me and go like, "Yeah, you're pretty bad at this," and they said it in a loving way, but it was like, "Oh wow, I really, all right, all right, time for me to be a musician."
Hey Patrick, good to chat. The record is awesome.
Thank you, Giles. Thank you for your time.
I tell you what, I got the wrong train yesterday and I ended up in southwest London, which is not where I live. And all the other trains were fucked. So I got a Lime bicycle, the sort of rent a bicycle. And I was like, fuck it. It's going to take me an hour and 10 minutes to get home. I listened to the record twice and I didn't feel curmudgeon-y at all. I just got through it. When shit happens and you try and find something to make fun of it. Prude was the fun of it for me.
You know what? It's a nice compliment. Everybody, if you're mildly inconvenienced, we've got the record for you.
So that was Patrick Kindlon of Drug Church here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. New record Prude out this Friday. Cheers for being here. If you enjoyed that, make sure you click subscribe. 2 episodes every week. If you're able to leave a 5-star review, that would be mega. Come back to our restaurant de la Gilles.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
Shop Macy's VIP sale going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.